Okay, very good. I'm very happy to be here with all of you, and in order to talk about what the subject says, so why to train your team with ROS. That's a subject that I like because I'm always been a person who says that ROS is a very good tools that can help us to speed up the development of our robots. So that's why I'm very intense on this talk about trying to convince people to use ROS, especially if you are a company, because this is the purpose for today. So let me introduce first myself. My name is Ricardo Tellez. I am the founder of the company, The Construct, and I have been working a lot with ROS in my company and other companies previously developing robots. So maybe what I'm going to tell you maybe can give you some ideas or can help you think about the subject. Just would like to remember that if you wait until the end of this webinar, you will receive the instructions in order to receive by email a PDF containing a summary of all the ROS commands that are interesting when you are working with ROS. So sometimes you don't remember exactly the commands. So you will have it everything in only 5 pages that you can use for yourself, for using when you are programming and making some consults to the page. Okay, so who is this message for? Who I am talking to? And the reason is that, so the answer is that I am talking to the people who works at companies that are building robots. That's especially the people who I'm talking to. And also, I would say also to some universities, to some places where a team of people needs to work with robots. I will give you some reasons why the people on this team should learn ROS and should be up to date into ROS. So that's the purpose of this webinar. So first, let's start by saying, so what is ROS anyway? So ROS is, answering this question is a little bit tricky, but what I would say here today and for this webinar is that ROS is just a framework for robotics that simplifies the way we program robots. Because previously to ROS, I mean, it was very difficult to program a robot. So ROS is a framework that simplifies the way that we create programs and the way that we share programs between different robots, different people, etc. If you don't use such kind of framework, then maybe you are very late in your developments. So you need to use a robotics programming framework in any way in order to move fast when developing software for robots. So if in case that you are not using ROS or you don't like it, then you have 2 options for keep on doing it. So the first option is that you use another framework. There are so many other frameworks available. I have put it there, just 3 of them: YARP, Orocos, JDE Robot. And some people think that ROS is not good enough because it lacks this, it fails here, it doesn't work properly in this situation. Then they can use all the frameworks that are available there. And those are some examples. The other option that you have is that you create your own framework. So you don't like none of the existing frameworks, or maybe you don't want to rely on the frameworks that other people has done, so you want to create your own. And that's the case, for example, for Aldebaran, the creators of the Pepper robot that you probably know, or Jibo, the company that has this very cute robot that you can put on your table and then it will interact with the people around the home, or Google in their own robot. So none of those companies are using ROS or any of the other existing frameworks. They have created their own. And what I suggest is that those things are bad bets. So for your company, trying to use a different framework than ROS, or trying to create a new framework from zero, this is not a very good option for you. I think that this is my opinion, so you can take that into consideration, but it's not the objective truth. But I will try to explain you why I do believe this. For example, about using any other framework, for example. So there are some criticisms about ROS due to its problems, and that it has some limitations at present in the current version of ROS. Of course, ROS is not problem-free, but no other framework has so many interesting features like documentation and debugging tools, for example. Also, ROS provides you many complex things in robotics already done off the shelf that no other framework provides. So YARP, Oracos, or all of that, they are very good frameworks, but they lack a very good documentation, they lack very good debugging tools, and they lack also utilities, for example, for grasping things. So using an articulated arm to grasp things. In ROS is relatively simple by using Move It. Or, for example, doing navigation. If you want your robot to move around, using ROS, the ROS navigation stack is almost just a setup problem, is nothing related to robotics now. But you cannot do that with any other framework that already exists. Or perception for identifying objects and using this perception to guide the robot behavior. This is already provided also in ROS with PCL and other packages. So those are all tools that you can use just by installing ROS in your robot. And those are very complex things to do with a robot that if you don't have them already done, you will have to develop and debug them and test them. And that will take a lot of time. About building your own, for example, about the argument about building your own. So the companies say that they don't want to stay with a framework that is not their own frameworks, that is owned by a third party. Well, it's a good option to develop. If you don't want to depend on another framework, it's a good option to develop yourself, your own framework. But you will have to know that it will take you for ages to have this framework working in the same, with the same reliability that ROS has at present. So it will take you a lot of time, a lot of effort. Let's take, for example, the case of Jibo, the robot. It's a robot that doesn't use ROS. You know Jibo. Yeah, I mentioned before. So I don't know what happened with this robot inside, but they don't use ROS. They have created their own framework. But the reality is that this robot has years of delay. So it should be released some years before. And just to let you know that it has been released 2 days ago. 2 days ago, so you can buy now this robot, Jibo. But I don't know if it is related to the framework, but I would say that not having used a framework that already exists and that is there available, so it has to have influence in some way in the delay. Then related to the argument that says that dependency on the framework that you do not control, it doesn't matter. So for example, you can start your company using ROS, and then whichever the point you decide to fork ROS, so you will have an already created and established framework working, and then you can create your own version of ROS based on ROS. So even in that case, you will not depend on ROS because you will be developing your own ROS, but you will have started using ROS. So it's also another option for those people that says that they don't want to be attached to the framework of a third party. Well, Because of that, also, I think that ROS is very important that you use it in your teams, in your companies, because ROS is becoming the standard on robotics programming. In this slide that you have here, so you have a picture of how ROS is being used around the whole world, around the world, in all the important places around the world. And this is just for the major visitors to the wiki of ROS. But that gives you an idea of who in the world is using ROS. As you can see, it's around the world. So it's kind of becoming the standard. And also, the number of visitors is increasing year after year, as you can see in this draw here. The third point that I would like to indicate in order to confirm that ROS is becoming the standard is that the number of different types of robots available with ROS is also increasing with the years, and I would say a very high speed. So that's one of the reasons why I think that ROS is important. So it's a big player in the robotics programming. So why to train your team in ROS? If I have not yet convinced you, so I think that the best argument is this one: is that you must start creating a ROS culture in your company. If you want to be one of the big players in robotics in any part of the field, you will have to speed up your development. And in that case, ROS is the one that can speed you in development of software for your robots. So if you want to speed up your company, then you will have to start to create a culture of knowing ROS and developing for ROS and being aware of what ROS is doing in your own company. For that, you have to either start training your members of the company or start hiring people that already knows ROS. But starting from hiring people that already knows ROS, it's going to be a little bit hard if they come to your company and they have to work on ROS by themselves. So the best option for you is to begin by training some of the people in your own company that already work with the robots, that already program them, and allow them to start to stay in contact with ROS and try things and see how ROS can improve your products in some way. So the next question will be then how to train your team with ROS. So what's the best way of training your team? Well, we'll present you with 5 options and you can decide the one that is best for you. The first one, of course, is the ROS Wiki. Going to the ROS Wiki at that address that is shown there, wiki.ros.org, that contains the official documentation of ROS. It's a very nice set of tutorials and complete, I would say, because it contains tutorials for many of the subjects of ROS. And that's the method that I used to learn some years ago. And it's quite good. The problem is that it's a little bit tough. So it will take you months to master all that information. And it's a little bit dry, I would say. But anyway, 90% of the people who is working with ROS now, and we started some years ago, then we have learned using those tutorials. So you can use them because they are very good. Then another option is to use the videos online. It is plenty of tutorials teaching you how to program different robots with ROS, with different languages, etc., etc. The problem with the video tutorials is that you have to find them, the correct ones. So they are kind of scattered around YouTube, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult find the correct one for the subject that you want to learn. But it's plenty on YouTube, so search on YouTube for those kind of videos. A third option that is the one that we have created in our company is to use an integrated learning platform. This is a platform that works on the web. So you have, with any type of computer, you connect to this Robotic Night Academy, and then you will get the tutorials on one side, the simulation of the robot. You are going to use simulation so you can practice at the same time that you are learning. And then the programming environment on the other side with some terminals that you can launch the typical ROS commands, compile, and create your own ROS packages online and execute on the simulated robot. Everything together using any type of computer and requiring no installation at all, because you just use a web browser. And so it's not because it's our company product that I'm telling you this clearly. It's because the people who tried that, they say to us, that's the best way of learning ROS. That's the fastest way of learning ROS. I would recommend you to give it a try. You can try that for free visiting that address. Okay, another way of learning ROS is to go to a ROS class. And it's also plenty. There are many universities that are providing ROS classes, and universities close to you, or even summer courses, even winter courses related to that. That's a way of learning by having a teacher that is teaching you. What I think of those is that they are good, if the teacher is good, of course, but the problem is that they usually lack a good practice, because so you had to program with specific computers and you have access to just a few robots. So it's a little bit limited in that sense, but it could be also a very nice way of learning ROS. And finally, we have the option of using the books. I also read some books on ROS, and there are many also. If you want to get a list of the best 10 books that we have found, you can check that address, and we have put this, compiled this list for you. So as a conclusion, what I would say is that if you want to be in the business of robotics, the sooner you get into the standard that is ROS at present, it will be the better for your company, because you will be in a better position when your competitors appear, and you will be already dominating that language. You will be already having products shipped that already work faster than your competitors. So basically, that's the message that I wanted to share with you today on the webinar. And then, as I promised at the beginning of the webinar, if you send me an email to that address that you can see on the screen, and you put on the email subject, I want to equip my team with ROS, I will send you these 5 pages with all the commands of ROS, explain and as in a summarized way, so you can use it on your projects. Then next, I would like to tell you that we are having a weekly live show webinar every Wednesday at 6, at the same time that this webinar has started. So every Wednesday we have this ROS Mastering live show where you can ask me questions, and I will answer those questions live there and show you the answers. So those questions could be things that are related to your own project, practical problems that you have in your project. And so depending on the way of the type of your question, maybe I will have to contact you prior to the live show and see how we can solve that problem, and then show the answer online live on that webinar. So please visit that webpage there in order to submit your question and we'll contact you. So basically, that's all what I wanted to explain to you today. And if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer them. Please write the questions on the chat and just be patient because there is a delay of between 5 and 10 seconds between your question and my answer given by voice, because the chat is going faster than the video feed. Muhammad says if we can share the presentation. Yes, of course. So I will write the presentation. I will attach the presentation below this video because this video is going to appear online. So it's going to be published in our channel, the construction channel. So you will be able to review the video in case that you need to take some notes or whatever. And I will attach a link to in the description of the video with the presentation. Any other question? So maybe any of you who are there working for a company that needs to consider if they are going to get into the ROS realm for the robots, or you are thinking maybe about creating a company of robotics. And so maybe are you in that situation, any of you? So Mohamed is asking if he has to review other tutorials and then is no to follow this presentation, I presume, and it is not, because it's a very light and straight presentation related to a subject. So you can just review this presentation later and you will be able to follow for sure. Thank you, Mohamed, for your question. Okay, Muhammad, sorry, first I answered Mohamed and now I'm answering Muhammad. He's asking me something about the ROS Ambassador Program, that he still not have access and etc. Yes, Muhammad, we are working on that. We have many requests about ROS Ambassador and we are going step by step. So I presume that I already answered you. And then so just be patient because we have too many requests and we cannot handle. So just don't worry, because your meetups are going to be scheduled without a problem. For those of you who doesn't know what is the ROS Ambassador Program, it's a program that we have created for becoming ambassadors of ROS. So you will teach ROS to some people around the world at your own location, at your own place where you are. And by doing this, you will use our platform. You can use our platform to the Robot Ignite Academy. So in case that you are interested, I'm going to put on the chat the link also for becoming a ROS ambassador. Sorry, on the description. I will put on the description of the video. So any other question? No person is a member of a company that is considering to switch to ROS? Or maybe a team. So what in my experience, I have met many people around the world. And so I have found some companies that they created their own frameworks, very light versions of a framework some years ago, and then they are not happy of throwing all that work to the garbage and take ROS. And in my opinion, it's more an emotional decision than a rational decision. Rationally, it's very difficult unless you are a very, very big company, a very large company with very, very clever people inside to maintain your own framework. It's going to cost you a lot. It's going to cost you a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort that you can better spend in other things, or maybe you don't even have the resources to do that. So maybe if you have created the framework in the old days and you are using that, so you don't want to throw it out because of all the work that you already executed, that you already did it. So my advice would be just to throw it out today. Throw it out and change to ROS. You will see how easy will be your life. You will not have to dedicate so many resources to correct the errors of your framework, to adapt your framework every time that changes occur in robotics. You will have all that done by ROS. I understand the feeling of saying, hey, my work is not so it's not valuable. It's not that what I'm mentioning. Your work was very valuable at that time, but times have changed. And if you want to be competitive with other companies, you have to be able to move fast. That's what ROS provides you, the ability to move fast. So that would be my recommendation for you. I have seen also this, it not only happens in companies, but also in research centers. Beware of that, because in research centers like universities and schools or just research centers, they have to publish, and that's the same constraint, time constraint. And you have to be fast, and you just have to go to the ICRA conference or the ROS conference, and you will see how people is using ROS for developing their experiments. So if you want to be competitive, you will have to move faster. So Stefan is indicating that they are a company from the automotive business, and they have started to learn ROS for automotive-related applications. And then he's excited about what they can do with ROS. So that's very nice. So I will tell you that we just wrote a post that is published in RoboHub, where we are talking about a path that you can follow to develop your knowledge of ROS in autonomous cars or for autonomous cars. So I would recommend you to read that post, because it contains step-by-step instructions that maybe you can use in your company for training yourself. I don't know your level, maybe you're already fully trained, or maybe to train your team, your mates that are working with you. So if you, let me just post here the link you can review. It's called How to Start with Self-Driving Cars Using ROS. So any other comment? Any other question? Muhammad said, thank you for your nice presentation. My pleasure, Muhammad. And I don't know if you want to know something more. Okay, so Nikhil, he says that he wants to learn ROS for autonomous grounded vehicles, and that is great. So it's plenty for that. So you can start by using the ROS navigation stack for that. That will allow you to understand how an autonomous vehicle can move using the navigation system. And these are the basics. And after that, then you can move to more complex things like using, for example, GPS navigation for moving outside, because the navigation stack is made for indoor navigation, the navigation stack basically. But you can have the robot also using ROS navigate doing outdoors. And so for that, you will need to learn how to use GPS, navigation-based GPS. And yeah, so I would recommend you to do that. In our cases, we have some navigation courses that teach you how to do navigation in just 5 days. So if you want to visit our academy, you can find those courses that will put you yourself in up to speed very, very fast. And also we have a specific course for learning how to program a clear path robot named Jackal. So you can learn how to program that robot for moving around, detecting person, working for patrol, etc. And also for another robot that is called the Summit XL, made by a Spanish company that is called Robotics. Also, you can learn a lot about how to use those commercial robots, autonomous grounded vehicles, actually, how to use them to do practical things with ROS. And those are specific courses that we have in our academy. Yeah, I would be happy to guide you. The problem is the time. So I'm really, I don't have a lot of time, but I will be happy to answer specific questions that you have. You know, so because Nikhil is indicating that it will be a great help if I can guide them towards the real sensor application for indoor navigation. And then the first thing that I will tell you is that you look for the Hokuyo lasers. And this is the basic sensors that you will need. And most of if you buy the robot, you have two options, okay? You buy the robot that is already made by, for example, to Robotnik company, or from ClearPath also. You can buy already built robots, AGVs, I mean. So you can buy those robots and they already come with all the sensors that you need to do indoor navigation off the shelf. I would recommend you definitely to work on that direction, to buy a robot that already exists, that already works, that it's proved that it works with ROS, and then you do all your experiments, you do all your tests with that. Once you have that working, you can start thinking about creating your own mobile robot. But once you understand all that process, how it works, even I would not tell you about that. I would not recommend you to create your own robot unless this is going to be the main point of your company. But even like that, let me explain you one project that we have created some months ago, and that's a robot that goes to that provides the coffee to the tables. So it's a robot that works in coffee shops where, you know, like Starbucks or Costa Coffee, where the people who prepares the coffee doesn't serve you the coffee, doesn't bring it to your table, but it just leaves it there. So you have to wait, then you go to your table with it. So in that case, we have created a robot that it's putting, is just waiting behind the desk of the coffee maker. Then the coffee maker loads the robot with the coffees that you have ordered, and then you press a button in a touch screen, and then the robot goes to your table, delivers the coffee, and then comes back to the desk for new refill for other customers. And in order to do that, it took us 3 months to create this. Actually, it was done by 2 students that knew nothing about ROS or robotics, and they did it in 3 months. Why? First, because they took ROS and they start to learn ROS. Of course, they learned using our platform that speeds up a lot learning of ROS. Our platform, Robot Ignite Academy, speeds a lot. We have courses for 5 days, so you can learn the basics of ROS in only 5 days. So imagine that. Anyway, so they took ROS as the programming framework, and then they took some platforms that already existed. They used a Tartarbot robot that already built, already works. They modified the robot with the things that they needed for the project, but everything was like pre-made pieces. So for one place is the ROS framework with a lot of programs that are already working, and from another one was hardware that was already certified to work with ROS. So putting those 2 pieces together, they were able to create a product that is called Barista the robot. And that robot is serving coffees here in Barcelona. In case you are around here in Barcelona and you want to check it, please let me know and we'll go together. So let me give you the link so you can also check that. That's an example of what I meant by this presentation. You take whatever is already done and then you move forward. So here there is a comment by Nikhil that says, great, I will communicate to you over email if we get stuck in our application. Okay, great. Huge market in India for such applications. And very few people know about ROS. Okay, yeah, I don't know if that's true because we are receiving a lot of people and customers from India that want to learn ROS. So I think that people in India is trying to learn ROS very fast, and a lot of people in India. So beware of the competitors. Great. More questions? Comments? How can I help you? Any doubt that you have? As you see, this is a very, very informal questioning. I mean, you don't have to hesitate to comment there, even to provide your own information. If you have your opinion related to this subject, please feel free to express it. So, nobody? Well, then if nobody else is asking any question, so maybe we'll finish here today. And just let me tell you. Okay, we have a question. That's also normal. It usually happens. When we are about to close, then there are some questions. That's great. Very well done. Barga. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. I tried my best. So Bargat says, do gazebo simulations provide accurate information? This is a very good question. Very good question. And the answer to that is that it depends. It depends on what you want to do. So gazebo simulations are very good, for example, for navigation. testing. For navigation, they are, I would say, that quite accurate. Then, if you want to do a simulation of a humanoid robot moving around, well, that's also improving a lot and has improved recently a lot. So you can also use that. And for aerial vehicles, okay, yes, it's so far so good. For where the place where Gazebo is lacking the most, is my opinion, of course, is when different parts need to interact to produce something, some movement of something. Like, for example, when you try to do a grasping of an object with a hand. So there are a lot of limitations, and sometimes the physics engine got crazy. But we also have a course on how to do manipulation where we show how to do this kind of things, of course, using the simulation of Gazebo. In any case, any simulator, at the end, you will have some differences between the simulation and the real robot. But how it works in development, how it works is that you first, when you are working on a company developing for robots, you have to develop your programs using the simulator first. Until it doesn't work in the simulator, it's not going to work in the real robot. I can assure you that. The simulator it's a filter for going faster again. So I'm trying to create competitive companies. So companies that want to be the best in their fields and that have to compete with other companies. For that, you have to move fast. And using the simulations is the way of going. You first try your programs in the simulation until it works in the simulation. And then once you reach that point, then you can try on the real robot and see if it works or if it start developing on the robot. It's okay. But the first step of using the simulator is the one that speeds the things, because testing on a real robot is always slower. So go for the simulations, and then, of course, use the real robot. Then have Muhammad that request about the ROS ambassadors, already answered that. So Barca, he means about coordination between independent systems for complex tasks. Yes. If you have different robots that are autonomous, so you have different robots, then you can simulate that in Gazebo, and it works quite well. If you mean different parts inside the same robot, that's more difficult, and there you are more likely to have problem with Gazebo. That's it. Then Muhammad suggests that ROS, controlled by the ROS core, has a single point failure, and that is right. So what he means is that in every ROS program, you need to have something that is called the ROS core running. This is the orchestrator of all the other ROS programs that can be running in your robot. And then what it means is that if the ROS core dies, then all your other programs, whatever they are doing, they will not work. So it means that you can kill the program for navigation, and then the robot will still be able to grasp things. You can kill the program for grasping, and the robot will be able to navigate and talk to people, etc., etc. But if you kill the ROS core, nothing works. So that's what Muhammad is suggesting, and that is right. So as I said, ROS has some limitations, of course, and they are trying to solve it. So the next version that is going to appear in December, by maybe in January, 1st of January, around there, it's called the ROS 2. And then the ROS 2, it doesn't have ROS core. It doesn't use ROS core for communication between nodes. It uses DDS, and is a complete and decentralized system. So this single point of failure is not there anymore. However, ROS 2 still is not mature enough to be used in commercial products. So it's still under development. But they are working hard for that. And there are other problems with ROS. Okay? It's not only that one. For example, if you get into the network of the cafeteria that I explained you before, you can hack our robot and make the robot do whatever you want, because ROS has no security. So it can be hacked easily. Okay, so okay, Muhammad, it's my pleasure to give you the information. So if you don't have any other question, maybe we'll close it here today. And I wait for you on Wednesday. Next Wednesday we have the ROS Mastering live webinar, and then on next Thursday we have a webinar. I didn't tell this to Stefan, sorry. I didn't tell that to Stefan, but next Thursday we have a webinar related about how to use ROS for autonomous cars, for self-driving cars. So that will be next Thursday, same time. So Wednesday, ROS Mastering live show, where you ask questions and then I answer. And Thursday, how to use ROS for autonomous cars. Thank you, Stefan. My pleasure that this helped you and for recommending our next webinar. Thank you very much to all the attendants. We are going to leave it here. So you have my email. I will write it down here in case you want to contact me. And see you on the next webinar, or see you around the world. Cheers.